Good morning. This is Wendy Henley. I'm the CEO of the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are coming at you on Chamber Vibes this morning with Woody Watts, Watts Creative Studio. And we have a special guest here, one of our chamber members, Rob Propes with Urban Grid, to talk to us today about solar farms and the benefits and really help us to understand this innovative technology. Rob Propes is a solar development manager at Urban Grid, where he works with landowners to help them tap into the full value of their land by utilizing it for solar energy. Rob's been working with this renewable energy for over 15 years, having first started developing offshore and energy projects and eventually land-based wind and solar energy. Prior to working with the renewable energy, Rob worked in public economic development in Delaware and Pennsylvania, where he helped recruit and retain businesses. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
It's a pleasure to have you, and certainly you are going to educate us all on everything that you know and everything that you do. And you now reside in Charlottesville, and you have 3 children and a wife, and I don't know if you have any dogs or anything else, but tell us about yourself and such as where you're from originally, other places you've worked. Let's get to know you a little bit.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you. And yes, I do have a dog. It's a lab mix, a rescue dog named Carson. So he's a real joy around the house, especially with all the working from home now.
Sure.
But no, thank you so much, Wendy. Yeah, a little bit about you. You talked a little bit about my work history there in the introduction. Thank you for that. Yeah, I kind of started my career in public economic development. As you said, as you mentioned, working at state governments in Delaware and Pennsylvania, and so real good familiarity with businesses and what is important for businesses to thrive in a state, and how states go about recruiting and retaining businesses. And then from there, I have a master's degree in environmental policy. And so I've always been attracted to the environment. Growing up, I grew up in rural southern Maryland, close to the Potomac River. And so nature and the environment was always kind of a big part of my experience as a child and an early adult. And so that's kind of, I think, what formed my passion around renewable energy. But I got into renewable energy in 2005 with offshore wind, which was honestly about 16 years earlier than the U.S. was ready to start looking at offshore wind energy, which you're just now starting to kind of hear about. And I think we'll see some wind turbines starting to rise up out of the seas here off places like Massachusetts and Delaware and Maryland and Virginia as well. Yeah, I started in offshore wind and then migrated to working on land-based wind, predominantly in the Midwest, and then ultimately solar energy, where I work predominantly in Virginia. So yeah, I'm passionate about renewable energy and its ability to help try to mitigate climate change at the local level. And I really enjoy working with people. I've been really fortunate to meet a wide variety of folks in government, business, and then landowners who are interested in retaining their land, but need to find a higher value use in order to hang on to it. So it's been really rewarding in that respect.
Sure, and that is very important to many people right now. In this environment for sure. And so how did what does Urban Grid do, and how did it develop and propagate solar energy?
Yeah, no, great question. So really, I would say solar energy development starts with private landowners. Landowners who are interested in maximizing the value of their land by leasing or selling it for solar energy. Oftentimes, people have land, they're using it for either agriculture, and I'm talking about large tracts of land, or maybe timber, but farming's a tough business, and it's got kind of some real dips, in economics over the years, and it's sometimes difficult for the farmer who's less than 1,000 acres to kind of make a go of it. And certainly timber is a very patient game, and again low value as well. And so these folks, they've had land in their families for so many years, generations, and oftentimes they're looking to ways to hang on to it. They don't want to see it turned into housing developments, and it's in relatively rural areas where they're not going to attract big businesses to come and buy their land. So when we're approaching them about solar, oftentimes they're really excited. It's a way for them to hang on to the land and generate a nice, stable, long-term income stream for them. So we work with these landowners oftentimes over a multi-year development process to bring a project to the market. And Urban Grid's role is to engage the landowner initially, and then we take on a lot of financial risk to make some early investments in things like the environmental studies that need to be done, or evaluating the connections to the electrical grid, cultural and archaeological studies, and then all the engineering and permitting that needs to be done to ultimately culminate into obtaining the necessary permits that are be required to construct the project. And throughout that process, the landowners get paid. They get paid to hang on to their land and not sell it, so that we can work through that process. And then during that process, they'll continue to use their land as they always have been, whether it's, again, timbering or farming or just letting it sit idle, and until we're ready to actually construct a solar project on it.
Now, as people are listening to this and they're probably saying, hey, can I do this? Or, what is the minimum acreage for this?
Yeah, so what we look for when we're looking for opportunities to develop a project, there's a number of things. We're looking for land that's close to transmission lines. So these are your large overhead electrical lines, not the ones that you see running down your street on the telephone pole-sized poles, but the larger structures, or close to an electrical substation, because that's what we're going to connect the project into, those lines or that substation. So the land has to be relatively close to those types of facilities. It's also relatively rural, away from houses and other areas. So it's kind of set back and at a site. And then being flat is a benefit, obviously, when you're putting structures on a property, and relatively free of things like wetlands. And so, and in terms of the size of the land, I mean, the types of projects that we develop are often 300 plus acres in size, so fairly large. But one landowner doesn't necessarily have to have that much. It could be a collection of a few landowners who are adjacent to each other, and collectively they have 300, 400, 500, 600 acres, and so that would be an ideal project footprint.
Okay, that's great to really get the requirements out there that you're really honing in on, that you're looking for, that are the best ways to do this. So help us to understand the cost benefits and the differences, solar energy compared to like other types of energy generation.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So in this country, we generate electricity predominantly from coal, natural gas, a little bit of hydro. Wind energy is probably 10 or 12% of our energy mix, but that's predominantly in the Midwest or out west. And then nuclear, and solar, of course. So those are really the primary energy resources. And in this part of the country, in Virginia, the lowest cost energy is solar. If you can believe it, it's really surprising to a lot of people that when you take into account the cost of building a new generation facility, so whether it's a natural gas or coal or et cetera, solar is the cheapest form of energy generation. And part of that is the fact that while there's a lot of capital costs up front to build a solar facility, once that facility is up and running, you don't have any fuel costs like you would with coal or natural gas. And so you have a very levelized form of energy, and that's what makes it attractive to utilities that are buying this energy, or large corporations that have maybe renewable energy goals that are buying it, or even universities as well. They like that nice long-term stable priced energy. Oftentimes these entities will lock into a 20-plus year contract for solar energy at a fixed price. And it's great for the ratepayers, right? So you don't have those price spikes that are often associated with fossil fuel-based energy. So that's why it's so attractive, and that's how it kind of compares to some of the other generation forms.
So that's a lot of advantages there too, in comparison. So the U.S. government and Virginia state government have subsidized both commercial and residential solar panel installations for years. And so when in terms of this, what kinds of subsidies can Bedford residents take advantage of today?
Well, urban grid, we don't serve the residential market. That would be the rooftop solar
right,
systems
solar panels.
We often see around. Yep. So I can't really speak to any of the programs that are available for homeowners who might be interested in solar. I will say that from what I've heard is that for people that are interested in residential solar, typically the payback on those systems are anywhere between 7 and 10 years. And we're certainly seeing more and more. So the investments must make sense for a lot of folks, because I'm certainly seeing them. I know more.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. The solar panels on the houses more and more, and so definitely solar energy is important. And so that's important to talk about the difference.
I was just going to say, Wendy, with respect to for utility scale projects like the ones that we do, there are no state subsidies, and no real federal subsidies either. What there is, though, there's a federal tax credit, and that is available to utility scale solar projects. It is set to expire here soon, over the next couple of years, and that's something that our market takes advantage of, as those credits. And it's really similar to like a tax credit that you or I would take advantage of on our own personal income tax returns for various items that might qualify for a tax credit. But the way that we use the tax credits, or I should say the industry uses the tax credits, is that the businesses that provide the financing for utility scale projects, what they do is they go and identify other businesses who have large tax liabilities. So in other words, companies that anticipate paying a substantial amount of federal taxes based on their income, and they offer the tax credits, the renewable energy tax credits, to those businesses in exchange for cash, and then that cash is invested in the construction of the solar facility. So while the tax credit helps reduce federal taxes, the way in which the investment actually flows to solar projects is all done through private financial markets. So it's kind of unique the way that works. But those tax credits are essentially leveraged for cash from businesses that need to utilize those tax credits to offset their federal taxes. So that's kind of how that works. But yeah, no real subsidies or grants per se at the state or federal level for renewable energy.
But definitely benefits for businesses to certainly pay attention to. And so in other countries around the world, such as Japan, they've developed offshore solar energy farms. What are the pros and cons of offshore solar energy farms? And is it possible that they could be developed in Virginia?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. So floating solar farms are relatively new, and there's a number of examples of them, around the world. A lot of times in their lakes or large ponds, and as you say, sometimes they're in an ocean environment. And I'd characterize these as really early niche markets where the systems are really still being evaluated for performing in much harsher environments than a land-based environment. And for the offshore space in renewable energy, I would say the U.S. is really just beginning to dip its toe into the offshore wind energy market in places like Massachusetts and Delaware, Virginia, as I mentioned earlier. And I think you'll see commercial scale offshore wind energy in this country before you really see any offshore solar projects here. Because it's a much more proven technology. Europe's been doing offshore wind since 2004, and so it's a much more tried and tested technology. But some of the other areas where solar is being evaluated that I think is interesting is something called agrivoltaics, and this is where solar is combined with crops that grow underneath of the panels, and it's very much in the exploratory phase, and they're kind of evaluating the pros and cons associated with these types of installations. So, the challenges of planting, maintaining, and then harvesting the crops, and, what the yields are when they're combined with solar systems, and then how to, get to the solar systems as well while there's crops in the field. So some different challenges there, but it's an exciting new area that's just kind of in its early stages.
It is. That's very exciting to know. And so many things are being developed. So let's bring it back to Bedford County. In Bedford County, what is Bedford County doing to promote the development of utility scale solar projects?
Yeah, no, good question there, Wendy. Thank you for asking that. So in Bedford County, doesn't currently have any, what I'd say, large-scale solar systems in place. I know in the town of Bedford, they put a solar system in a few years ago. It's a relatively smaller project. But over the past year, Bedford County has been working on drafting a solar ordinance, which is essentially the zoning standards, to allow these larger scale, what I'll call utility scale solar projects in the county. And the community development staff has been working with the Planning Commission to draft the solar ordinance. And things were put on pause for a while back in March by the Planning Commission, but I've heard they've restarted that effort and are picking that process up again. And I would anticipate that sometime this fall, the Planning Commission would recommend a draft ordinance to the Board of Supervisors, and then the next step would be for the board to review that draft ordinance and then adopt it, which could happen as early as, I would say, December of this year. And I know the county is going to be soliciting public feedback on solar energy in the county, and the planning staff will be running some meetings, four meetings in October and November at various public libraries throughout the county. And I would just say that for folks who are interested in learning more and would like to support solar energy in the community, to feel free to just reach out to us, and I'd be happy to share more information about those upcoming meetings with them. And they can just shoot me a message at info@urbangridco, that's co.com, info@urbangridco.com, and I'd be more than happy to connect them with that process.
Absolutely, and we can help promote that too. So if you'll send me the flyer with the dates, we'll get that out as well. And, there's
perfect.
So many benefits that are associated with this. Let's talk about just a few before we wrap up, and like the ones that are developed by Urban Grid. and how the counties in Virginia
Yeah,
benefit.
yeah. There's a great deal of many benefits. These solar projects they generate a tremendous amount of tax revenue for a county like Bedford. We're talking millions of dollars over the life of the project. And the great thing about solar projects is they don't require any county services. No new infrastructure is needed. No new schools or sewer, water, etc. But yet they provide a lot of tax revenue for the county. So during the construction, there's a lot of new dollars that get injected into the community to local businesses. So things like gas stations, restaurants, and hotels, and heavy equipment, service and parts, etc. I mean, all these local businesses benefit during the construction process. And of course, a solar project, as everybody knows, is generating energy with no air emissions. And then once it's up and running, there's no traffic from during the operations phase. It sits there quietly and out of sight, out of mind, and generates clean energy. And then at the end of its useful life, these things are removed, and the land could actually be reclaimed for farming or timberland. And so, it's just it's a type of business that's it's a real win-win. Very light on the community, but yet provides a lot of revenue, and again helps landowners hang on to their land or get more value from their land. And I would say it ultimately helps keep rural areas rural because this land is not being turned into neighborhoods, and so that's a real bonus as well for folks that like to continue to have these areas remain rural areas.
Absolutely. And, for Bedford County, we are all about preserving our beautiful landscape that we have here. And we certainly love our land and we want to keep it, just looking as pretty as it can.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some information about what Urban Grid does with your membership. Very much appreciated.
We'll look forward to hearing more from you in the coming weeks and months ahead, and keep us informed on all of the decisions. We'll look forward to supporting you as we can as your Chamber of Commerce. Thanks again, Rob, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.